Hi family, Stephanie here, and I feel like that perhaps this is one of the most important videos I'll do because on the topic of gang stalking, because it truly is a trauma-based form of mind control, and it occurs in many ways. And please understand that there is no way possible to cover all of the tactics and all of the strategies that are used by gang stalkers, but they are predictable in their patterns and in their methods. And so I've tried to break it down as simply as I can into 5 phases. This video will cover the more overt phases, the final 3 phases. So before you ever become aware that you're a targeted individual, there is the development phase. And that is where they are very covert and they are surveilling you. And trust me, they are there long before they make themselves known to you. There is probably an entire dossier in live time on your life. They have surveilled where you go, who you associate with, what doctors you see, what your daily routine is. I mean, many of these like handbooks and things like that for gang stalkers can be found online. And their credibility varies. But so I use academic studies for this video, I use my own experience, and I use the books that I have read, and I also use sources that I've found in archives and in various places. So I think what I'm 100% an expert on is my own experience, and I've had a wide variety of experiences. So collectively, throughout the targeted individuals they have studied, the studies they have done, self-report studies and surveys on targeted individuals, it becomes very apparent that there is the surveillance and the collection of data on a target happens long before and continues throughout as well. The second phase, and I won't stay as focused on the development phase because there is some evidence that this starts very early for many of us. And whether it be my adoptive parents, many of us were raised by narcissists, many of us were the black sheep. So it feels like this kind of conditioning early and development, so that by the time you get to the point where you are actually experiencing the traditional kind of classic symptoms or experiences of gang stalking, if you will, cause stalking, organized stalking, group stalking. I mean, there's so many different names for it. But by the time I became aware of it, it's only in retrospect that I'm able to see maybe some of the development. That might include going through your mail, going through your trash, surveilling you both technologically and physically, keeping their eyes on you. But they do not make themselves noticeable to you until kind of the second phase. And please understand that many of these phases overlap and are ongoing. So it's not like a linear timeline. But the second phase, and I named them all with D's, so there was development and then disclosure, which is where you are made aware of their presence. And this can be a very scary time. And the reason I say that this is such an important video is because the easiest way to make an indelible traumatic event on a person, there are 3 identifiable characteristics of trauma that become seared in one's nervous system and body and brain. And one of those is the element of surprise. So if you think about combat, people in combat, if you think about people who are a violent crime is perpetuated upon them, part of the trauma is the element of surprise. And so if you can bring into awareness for someone, some of the things that they might be able to expect, I'm hoping to maybe mitigate some of that for people, because the other two things, incidentally, are a feeling of helplessness and the inability to escape. And gang stalkers are masterful at creating these three conditions: the surprise, the helplessness, and the feeling that you're not able to escape. And of all of the studies of trauma, these are the underpinnings of the most severe kind of hallmarks of trauma. So again, that is why I say this is extremely important, if for no other reason, for you to understand kind of what's coming at you so that you can better navigate it and mitigate the trauma. You can't eliminate it. This is a traumatic, horrific thing to endure. And to say, I would be lying if I told you that you're not going to experience discomfort and hardship. But I will never leave you without hope, and I will never leave you without resources. And I don't just talk about these things so that you have no solution. So as I go through this, please know I will be covering remedies to this and just the awareness itself of what is happening to you, and why may not be fully answered, but at least what and who is also not a mystery, but it is very complicated. So please be forgiving in that not everything can be covered. So now I'm getting to the disclosure phase, which is where they make themselves known. There is no mistaking. This is why I have never done a video on signs that you are being gang stalked or things of that nature, because by the time you are watching a video like this, you are well aware of what is happening to you. You might not know the name for it. You might not know exactly what's happening, but they have made themselves known to you. And they do that in a multitude of ways. And that can be by sensitizing you to certain gestures, certain events, certain colors. Some people will see, for instance, one headlight everywhere. Everywhere they go, there's somebody with a headlight out. Every time they step outside their door, there's horns honking. Their neighbors are banging on the floor. And please keep in mind, as I speak about these kind of tactics, every one of their tactics is designed to be hidden behind the cloak of plausible deniability. And that is so that it can be excused in many other ways, like coincidence, or that the person is unstable, and we'll get to that. But all of their tactics are designed as outrageous and easily dismissed by someone who is not familiar with this. So if you say, every time I go to the grocery store, there are people around me talking about things that only I know about. They have watched you, they have studied you, and I say this not to scare you. It is the reality of this situation. They are likely in your devices, and please do not waste your time. I did it myself. Replacing my computers, replacing my phones, replacing anything electronic. And they want you to do that. They want you to exhaust your resources trying to figure this out, trying to fix the damage they are causing. But most often, and I personally, at the time that this was at its height, the technology hacking portion, hired a private investigator only to learn that it wasn't my devices. I had bought this plan at Best Buy so that I had a longer return period, because I would buy a phone, I would set it up, it would be hacked, I would take it back, I'd get a different brand, I'd get a different model. Same with my computers, same with anything technological. I gave my smartwatch away. I mean, you name it. It's like I was fighting in live time as I'm trying to change all my passwords and write them all down and do two-factor authentication and conceal. I had a safe. I mean, it gets so crazy, and that's intentional because they want to exhaust you. They want to exhaust your resources. There were days I couldn't go to class. I had been up all night trying to change my passwords and figure out what's going on. And back to the PI, and thankfully it was a reputable one who let me know that there are things at the time. Now, this was several years ago. He called it a pineapple. They're called stingrays, but generally they are things that are placed in your vicinity that intercept all of your communications. So even if you keep your device on you, nobody's ever touched it. With technology today, there are so many ways to hack your Wi-Fi, to hack you through an email, through a text, through a phone call even. I mean, when I looked into some of the sub-projects of MKUltra and realized that even hypnotic states and things like that can be done by telephone, we're talking 60 and 75 years ago these things were happening. And so I can't imagine what's possible now. So to plug all of these holes with technology is nearly impossible. And so do not waste your money on buying expensive phones and expensive gadgets and let me correct myself. Replacing them and continually replacing them and draining your resources is not the best use of your resources. There are preventative measures you can take, but none of them are just surefire. So I'm just saying, before you throw out your computer and throw out your phone, and you may need to if it's physically hacked, but generally it is something that's placed in your vicinity. And so get back to the disclosure phase, and I want to spend most of my time on the last three phases of this horrific, dark, systematic program to dismantle someone. But they will make themselves known. And so whether it's being followed, whether it is seeing the one headlight, everywhere you go people cough, it is different for everyone, but it's similar, if that makes any sense. The precise tactics may be different, but they are very similar, and they are tailored for the target themselves. And so, after speaking with thousands of targeted individuals myself, having read the research and the books and having been through it, there are some very predictable patterns and tactics. The next thing that will happen, and this would be phase 3, and it happens in tandem with stage 4 and continues throughout, which is the destabilization of the individual. So we have the development, and we have the disclosure of the perpetrators, and then we have the destabilization of the individual. And that is where they are really starting to unravel. When they did begin MKUltra projects, they specifically targeted individuals who were known to have substance abuse problems. So if you are someone that is using illicit substances, please stop. And I say that not out of any kind of judgment, but for your own protection. And there's a few reasons for that. When they picked the individuals for, say, MKUltra, and they specifically targeted people that were prone to mental instability or prone to having addiction issues, it was because they were easily discredited. They would chalk up their experience to some kind of drug-induced psychosis. They would chalk up their experiences to some kind of mental psychosis. And so, and the second reason about the illicit substances is that if you are surrounding yourself by people who are using these substances and who are in active addiction, they are easily swayed by giving them they can be bought out very easily. It would stun you to learn what people will do. And someone laughed at me in a former video for saying dime bag. I don't think that's a thing anymore. You know, whatever the measurement is, but hey, I'll give you this amount of whatever substance if you'll just tell me where this person is going, or just do this while you're in their presence, or, you know, any number of things. And so, because of their need to feed their own addiction, they are much easily swayed by these perpetrators and to do things that can be perpetuated against you. So it's for two reasons: so that you are not discredited. Well, there's more than two reasons, honestly, because it's for your own health and well-being. But in terms of gang stalking, it is so that your experiences are not dismissed by the fact that you're using an illicit substance, and so that the people that you are surrounding yourself with aren't easily swayed and bought off by substances. So, you know, like I said, back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, they were purposely targeting people with substance abuse issues. And that, you know, there's speculation and maybe even a preponderance of evidence that, you know, these programs never ceased. So, I mean, we can at least look at the framework from past programs to be able to identify some of the tactics and some of the selection methods that they used and apply them to today. So as they are destabilizing you with this, what they call street theater and noise campaigns and sleep deprivation and sensitization to neutral stimuli, which then you become conditioned to perceive as threat, most people's psyche, and the word psyche stems from, ironically, it's a Greek word stemming from soul, but and psychology was treatment of the soul, but your psyche, your psychological well-being is deteriorating, and so is your nervous system, and you will wind up in fight or flight and trauma-based mode, and that is where people are most easily controlled. So this destabilization of the individual serves a great many purposes. It helps to perpetuate the idea that they are unstable because they are creating a pressure cooker of an environment. You know, people start missing work because they're not getting sleep. I know for me, missing class because I'm up all night fighting with technology, and you also start to constrict your movements, and because you are afraid to go out, and you start experiencing all kinds of physical symptoms. I highly recommend, and I will put in the description box, the book The Body Keeps the Score, because psychological trauma has a profound effect on your body as well. And so if you start to miss work, you start to miss class, you start to act erratically, you start to think irrationally, you're not crazy. This is being perpetuated upon you, and these tactics have been studied and honed for years, and we're human beings after all. But by knowing what to expect and using things to ground yourself emotionally, please understand it is so important so that you're able to think rationally, so that you are able to make wise decisions, so that you are able to act and not react to what is happening to you. And I know that's not easy. It has taken years of practice, and that was me feeling around in the dark, not understanding. So hopefully this will help. You know, whether it is reading, whether it is walking, whether it is reading scripture, whether it is praying, whatever it is. I used to picture strawberry fields, as silly as that sounds, because my mom growing up used to have these strawberry patches, and I would picture fields and fields of strawberries. It sounds so silly, but it would change my mindset into something peaceful. It's different for everyone, so pick something that brings you a sense of peace and joy. even if it's looking up at the sky and appreciating the sunshine, anything to ground yourself emotionally. Otherwise, you are going to be prone to erratic behavior and emotional outbursts. And again, this is a very normal reaction, but it is something you have to avoid at all costs, because the fourth stage is the discrediting. And again, I made them all start with D. So develop, disclose, destabilize, and then discredit the individual. So in tandem with these things, as you are starting to unravel, they are surely approaching your neighbors, your coworkers, your friends, your family members, and they are perpetuating a narrative that you are unstable. They predetermine who you are likely to run to when these things start happening, and they're priming those individuals as well, so that when you come hysterical reporting these things, that person is going to be like, oh, you know, like maybe they were right. Maybe this person is a little bit, you know, unwell here. So just understand that please be careful if you speak to people about it, who you choose to speak to. Please pick a very safe environment and safe people, and those become harder and harder to come by. And until often many of us are left with ourselves and our faith. And so I'm also coming at this from a very carnal aspect. And at the end of this video, and perhaps even throughout, I maintain that the only relief possible is spiritual. These people are evil. No matter if an evil is drawn down the middle of the human heart. It is not divided into political parties. It is not divided into career choice. So that is why you find it everywhere. You will find these people in churches. They are Uber drivers. They are restaurant workers. They are clergy at churches. They are not all of this is, I'm not saying all of them. They are law enforcement. They are in government agencies. They are everywhere, because these people truly, some of them just have a seared conscience and are evil people. Other people don't have a strong foundation and a strong faith and aren't filled with the Holy Spirit. So they are likely to accept any narrative being presented about you, or any doctrine that's being presented to them. And I was just reading a scripture earlier, and I wish I had it in front of me. But it was basically saying that, you're like the wind. You'll accept any doctrine that comes along, any narrative that comes along. If you don't have a true compass of truth and a true north and a strong moral code and understanding from the Holy Spirit, you are an open vessel. You can be used by the enemy. You can be used by these perpetrators. And unfortunately, that is the large majority of what we see in society today, are people who don't have a firm faith and a firm grasp on truth. So they're just like, I picture like a reed in the wind that is blown kind of to and fro. And again, I wish I had that scripture in front of me to read. It was... I believe it was Ephesians 4:14, but I'd have to look that up. But it talks about that. So back to what I'm saying in terms of the destabilization of the individual in tandem with the discrediting of the individual. And while they are making themselves known, you will inevitably, most often, people experience vandalism into their property. I mean, things like there might be I just remembered this recently, where my clothes, all of my clothes would have these little tears in them. And in the lint trap of my dryer, there would be shredded glass. They would come in my home and move things. Someone reminded me this week, which was also my experience, where my bathroom water was turned down to a trickle. And I'm not a plumber, so I'm not understanding why it's just drip, drip, drip out of my faucet. Another time, they literally removed part of the plumbing under my kitchen sink. So I turn on my kitchen sink and water just comes spewing out from under. I was renting a home at the time, and I would come home and my dishwasher wouldn't work. So I would call the landlord and say, my dishwasher isn't working. Well, he would come out and it was unplugged. Now, if any of you, and most of you, I'm sure, either own or have had a dishwasher, a refrigerator, an oven, actually, it may have even been the oven, what it requires to unplug an oven or a refrigerator. But the same thing happened with my refrigerator. I came home and I think it took me a while to notice, but I opened the door and the light didn't come on, and I realized the refrigerator was out. And again, I called the landlord. It's unplugged. Well, I learned after those 2 times. I know it sounds silly. You'd think the first time I would have checked. No. But the second time I learned. I was fooled when my central air conditioning went out. I checked it. I went outside. I looked. Apparently, there is a way to disconnect that as well. So these kind of things would happen where they would come in my home, things would be displaced, pictures would be upside down. At one point when it really escalated, as I am disintegrating and calling the police, virtually hyperventilating, I would wake up, there would be a fire in my front yard. My car had been set on fire. I mean, it escalated so horribly. I'm just astounded that I'm sitting here today. And that was before I didn't have the foreknowledge of what was happening. So this all just seemed like random chaos coming from one evil individual. It wasn't until I fled that home and that space that it became more of the group stalking, where it assimilated wherever I moved for a long time. I moved 800 miles away. I tried everything under my power. I got rid of every device. I changed all of my emails, my phone numbers. At one point, I changed my name. I mean, it was insanity. And everything was okay for a few months. And then it just resurfaced. And they are like moths to a flame, you being the flame. So no matter where you go, they will reassemble it. I mean, I literally picture like an outside light and how moths and bugs will flock to it. And that's how it felt. That is how it felt, like this Twilight Zone, kind of experience and pressure cooker. And I could not for the life of me figure out how these people were connected. I thought it was one individual. How could they know 800 miles away, this first individual? It took me a very long time to peel this onion back and to understand this, and to ultimately get to the point where I understood that I am fighting evil. And I had to, believe me, adjust everything in my life. There, nearly everyone in my life could have been named Judas, and including my own family. And so it is gut-wrenching, and it is enough to break anyone. But you cannot let it break you, even if it's down to you and the Lord. Because the last phase that I will talk about, and I hate that, and again, I used all D's. I'll use it scripturally, which is that the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And that is the final phase. is destroy, annihilate, disassemble, dismantle somebody's life. Because by now, this person, this target, this unwitting participant has been destabilized, has been discredited, and it's like you are in such a weakened position by now that they come in for, and this is when you will generally start to notice the electronic harassment, not in the form of just surveillance anymore, but you will find oftentimes electrical disturbances in your home. You will, there was a phase where I went through where, I still have the video clips of where my muscles would twitch so much. The headaches were so intense. My body would heat up so much that my eyeglasses would fog up, and my roommate at the time would laugh, and I'd say, something is wrong. I would go to study and I would have such a debilitating headache that my mind just felt like cotton candy. I just couldn't put things together. I will tell you that even with electronic harassment, even with, and there are some very good books on this. I read them. I didn't even bring them with me when I moved the 2 times ago, because you can go so deep down that rabbit hole, and there is so much that's possible, and it is almost impossible to discern where it is coming from, because there are so many patents on this type of technology, and it's escaping me right now. I recently saw a video. I believe it's the ADS system. I wish I meant to look that up before I did this video. But there are detectors you can buy. I'll put them in the description box that will detect, and that's what I did. When those things were happening, I was having heart palpitations. I remember I had my yearly checkup and my blood work was good and everything. And she happened to ask me, like, are you having any heart palpitations? She even ran this little analytic as to what my chances of a cardiac event were in the next 20 years, which was incredibly low. And I said, actually, I am having like heart palpitations constantly. And so this was just my experience. So she scheduled for me to wear a monitor, and she scheduled for me that monitors like your heart activity, and scheduled for me to see a cardiologist. And I kid you not, it stopped. I bought that monitor, which I'll put in the description box. This was years ago, but it works quite effectively, especially for the money. They have a newer model, but Amazon tells me that it's more frequently returned. But it detects RF, RMF, microwave, all of that. And so I turn on this meter and it starts flashing red, and the numbers are shooting up on my pillow. So you can expect it to shoot up if you hold it up to your microwave, if you hold it up to your phone charger, if you hold it up to your computer, it's going to, go off. But this is my pillow, which is not electronic, or my bed, or where I sat in my chair. And I approached it very methodically, because by now I had learned that my hysterical reaching out to an unbeliever of this is not going to work. So I of course documented everything. I showed it to 4 different people. I took it into 2 other people's homes where there was no activity. I took it into my roommate's bedroom where there was no electric activity. So this monitor was very accurate in determining where there were microwaves and radio frequencies, but they should not be happening on my pillow. And I kid you not, I would videotape it. I would take the monitor and I would videotape the readings as I was walking around my room. The heart palpitations, the muscle spasms, and the heart palpitation. Did I already say that? The fogging up of my glasses, all of it stopped. Oftentimes I will have a reemergence of some of these symptoms, and the minute I make a doctor's appointment, it stops. I don't know what there is to that, but also today, my faith is in the Most High God. And so that's a huge difference. It's not that I didn't have faith before, but it is my everything now. And I don't, whether it is a government program, whether it is, you are of the school of thought that it is simply local law enforcement, it's not. The evil is divided among the human heart. So it is in every career choice, it is in every organization. You know, there is witchcraft, there is spiritual warfare. Please watch my other videos on some of these things, because this video is strictly talking about the phases and strategies and tactics so that you can be more prepared. Because if you're watching this video, you have noticed them already. And these are some of the things you can expect. And I know I'm missing things. Oh, the car tampering. That's another classic thing. In my case, it could be letting air out of your tires. In my case, sometimes they would just get in my car and they would turn the rear view mirror upside down. So I'd get in my car and the rear view mirror would be facing the ceiling of my car. Break the console. You know, things that were, you know, ultimately, I had one car that was tampered with and ultimately caught on fire. And I had another car that they actually did. And here's why I think this happened. If they have your VIN number, which they can get from your insurance, your registration, whatever it is, they can have keys made for your car. So if you're thinking, how are they getting in my car? Well, this is how they do it. Well, I happen to own a car, unbeknownst to me. I had bought it used from CarMax, and apparently the car had already been broken into prior to my purchasing it. It was in perfect condition when I purchased it, but they had replaced the ignition. So whenever they apparently tried to make a key for my car, it didn't match the VIN number. So in that case, my car was broken into. They drilled out the ignition switch. I mean, they will put things on your upholstery. Like, I kept having a reoccurrence of this residue on my upholstery, so I would sit down and it would be like my pants or shorts or whatever would have this brown stain on them. I mean, it sounds like just childish tactics. I recently heard of someone whose steering wheel used to be cut up with knives. The console seems to be a big thing for them, but it does vary. It varies just enough, but it is predictable that your property will be likely violated. And it causes the three things I talked about: the element of surprise, having been violated, the helplessness, and the feeling as though you can't escape. I literally fled a 3-bedroom home on foot because it was after the fire event, on foot with my service dog in a backpack. And that's how scared I was. When it comes to the people around you, some of them have been put there. You know, honey traps is something I hadn't spoken about, but people will be sent into your life to try to engage with you romantically that are not for your good, but hopefully you are starting to develop your relationship with the Most High. It is the only, and I mean literally, 550,000 people have seen these videos, and not once have I gotten a comment that they have overcome this any other way. If that is not confirmation for you, if it's not just my story, and even if you are still experiencing it, you have the potential for it to stop. There is a work being performed in you. So it may be that there's somebody you haven't eliminated from your life that is still involved. It may be that there is a behavior that you're engaged in. And this is, please don't hear what I'm not saying. This is not placing blame on the target. This is just saying, it's like saying that your roof is leaking and there's some hole that you haven't patched and there's still water coming in. So when I say these things, I'm saying them because there's some hole in your existence that maybe hasn't been patched yet. So that the person who has the leaky roof is not at fault for their leaky roof. But still we have a responsibility to try to patch those holes. And those holes are entrance of the enemy. They are potential entrances of the enemy. So you have to be praying against witchcraft. You have to be praying against spiritual forces. Our battle is not against flesh and blood. Ephesians 6:12. I mean, I have a subscriber whose whole channel name is Read Ephesians 6:12. It's brilliant. Our battle is not against flesh and blood. It is against principalities, authorities, rulers of darkness, and forces of darkness in this world and from the heavenly realms. I get it mixed up every time. I need to post it in front of me. But the point being, that was very freeing for me, because yes, it is being carried out on the carnal level. And these agencies are involved, and these organizations are involved. And in my case, the person I had become involved with was a criminal informant, and that is very common that these people are used. They are oftentimes highly trained individuals to be able to accomplish these things. Then there are the people who are unwitting, in a way, participants of this because they are told something about you by someone they perceive to be an authority. So oftentimes it'll be someone who poses as someone in authority. And they've done studies on this. The Stanford study, I believe it was, where people will listen to someone with a badge or with a uniform almost 90% of the time. And so common narratives are that this does happen far more often to females statistically, but for males it may be that they're telling people you're a criminal, you're a pedophile. If you are engaged in watching certain things, that will be used against you. Also, it is also an entrance of the enemy, and I say this not out of judgment, but they will use that to pigeonhole you into being someone as a deviant. If you have substance abuse issues, then they will use that to discredit you. If you have ever, tried to stay, and it's so unfair because these things necessarily cause trauma and instability, but try to do the best you can, if you seek help, to be methodical and stick to the facts of what is happening. It is very difficult, and I know this from having done all of the wrong things and been in the states that I encourage you not to be in. It has taken me years to make sure that I create a safe space for myself, a soft place to land, almost like a bubble that I stay in, where I am able to have peace and serenity, to insulate myself from things of this nature. And I promise you, they may let you know they're there every now and then. Because the final thing in terms of research and the books that I have read, and they had done far more research than I, and perhaps it's the phase that I'm in, where they orchestrate all of these things, they perpetuate all of these things, and then they will watch to see how you respond, see if there's long-term damage, see if there's long-term psychological effects, long-term neurological effects. But every now and then they let you know that they are still there, they are still watching. But it can be almost like an acceptance where I'm aware that they could be outside, they could be where I'm going. I don't, it's like the weather. I don't let it affect my day. I might get a flash of anxiety, but I have practiced this for years now, what to do with that, how to stabilize myself. And my faith and my dependence is on the Most High. And I literally got to the point where, like, if they get me, they get me. But in the meantime, I am going to live devoted. I am going to live and be the best person that I can be. And I have utilized their surveillance to refine my character. I was determined that they were not going to be able to use anything I was doing, even the most minute of things, to use against me. And it benefited me. And it's not that I was doing anything egregious, but I'm telling you, whether it's like putting back the shopping cart every time I go to the store, I wanted you control what they see. They are a captive audience. If they're watching your communications, if they're watching your behavior, they see me reading my Bible every morning, and I'm not perfect. Please know I'm not perfect. But I have learned not to react to situations that are designed to provoke a reaction in me. And if I am afraid, they're like, I have at least a poker face now. There was a time that I was going out, and every couple days the air would be let out of my tire. If you were to be watching me, you weren't going to notice that it had an effect on me. I would just calmly go to the gas pump. And I know that this is hard. I'm not discounting the difficulty of emotionally regulating yourself. And it, again, is impossible to cover everything in this video. I do want to mention one other thing, which is your pets. Do not take your eyes off your pets. So I had a dog at the time, and they would put things in the yard that my dog would eat and get very, very ill. And so I had a beautiful wooded lot, fenced, like wooded lot, and she used to love to run and play. But once she was taken, and a couple of times she got very ill, and once she came home with almost like a chemical burn on her paw. To this day, I don't know what it was, but it had removed like all of the fur down to her skin, and her paw was so sensitive to touch. She quit eating and drinking. She wouldn't drink the water out of her bowl. So I had to have the water tested. There was something wrong with the water. They will even use gases in your home. So one of the times I came home, I interrupted whatever they were doing, and there were rubber tubes cut rubber tubes. And to this day, I don't know what those were for or would have done. But I had a period where went to bed on a Friday night and woke up on a Sunday morning, and my dog was there and had not urinated in the house. So there is no way that a dog did not urinate in the house. She was good, but that's like literally impossible. So they will use gases. They will use directed energy. They will use, but it's not forever. It's just simply not forever. And I know it feels like that, and they want you to think that way. But God has his hand on you and on this universe. And with a breath, he can make it stop. And some people question, like, why would a loving God allow these things to happen? I wouldn't trade it for anything. It has refined my character. It has drawn me to him. It has taught me so much. If I have nothing tomorrow, I have my faith. And I know that sounds hokey woo-woo to some of you, especially if you are in the throes of this. But it has done so much for me. Every person that has betrayed me and been in on this, that God has shown me, these people are not meant for you. Consider it a blessing that it was revealed to you, the character of these people. That's not somebody you want in your life, because a real friend, even if they can't understand it, even if they have a puzzled look on their face, they're not going to dismiss you summarily. They're going to be concerned about your welfare. Instead of scoffing that maybe your cheese has slid off your cracker, they're at least going to ask questions like, hey, this person approached me. I don't know what they tell these people that keep them from asking you about what's been said. To this day, I don't know. I've read certain things. I've read certain theories that they tell them, if you tell this person, then we're going to start doing this to you. And perhaps that is enough. I also know firsthand people who have been in legal trouble and have been given assistance if they will become a part of this perpetrating these things against people. There isn't enough money in the world. There isn't enough. I would rather suffer the consequence than perpetuate this against anybody. And they know that. They know who they can reach. And there does come a time when you are untouchable and you are unreachable, because you are that devoted to the Most High. Not perfect, again, not perfect. But the enemy knows he's not going to be able to sway you. And I pray for the protection of my faith every single day, because the enemy will attack your mind. And I didn't even get into V2K. It's not something I have ever experienced personally, but I know that it's technologically possible. I know about remote neural monitoring. I know that I've read the patents. I've seen the voice to God technology is what it's called. Well, voice to skull, but there is also a voice of God technology. I don't doubt these people whatsoever. Dr. John Hall even took people out on a boat in the middle of nowhere, and they were still experiencing it. And these are people who had no former mental illness or mental instability. I believe there are different, programs and different things that they are, I don't like the word experimenting, but that they are, there are things that cannot be done in experimental settings, even on animals, without going through a review board. And how else are they going to know if directed energy works unless they try it? And and unfortunately, it has been demonstrated that doctors and universities and governments have been willing to perpetuate these kinds of things on unwitting citizens. And this is not local, by the way. This is global. Evil is global. Evil exists in every organization. This is government grade technology, but it is getting in the hands of people who are ill-intended. And so we can't automatically assume that it is every government employee, that it is every law enforcement officer. That is certainly not the case, but it is pervasive throughout careers, throughout religions, throughout one political party or the other, throughout one country or another. I hear from China, I hear from Poland, I hear from Australia, I hear from Germany. I was trying to think, I hear from Ireland. This is global. This isn't just here, brothers and sisters. This is everywhere. So please understand that no matter how you look at it, this is evil. And there is only one thing more powerful than evil. There is only one authority, that we have been given authority to trample the heads of serpents. We have been given the authority to rebuke Satan. And I don't care what school of thought you're in. This is pure evil. It is torture. It is terror. And I know I missed a lot of things. But if you go through my videos, I didn't even cover in this video the poisoning, the exploitation. They are so wrapped up in trafficking rings, and it accomplishes so many purposes, which is, again, the helplessness, the trauma. The more trauma they can pile on you, the easier you are to control with fear and oppression. So please do whatever you can. And I am working very hard. I didn't mean to go this long. I am working very hard to, I have founded a nonprofit. We are waiting on tax-exempt status to help targeted individuals. But in the meantime, I will keep doing these videos because it is horrible. But by understanding some of what you can expect, hopefully it will help you navigate this just a little bit better. And know that you're not alone. Know that it's not hopeless. I sit here today, it's not that I don't have discomfort or I don't have times that I'm discouraged, but overall, I live a life of joy and purpose and meaningfulness. Even losing people, places, jobs, things, I mean, being down to nothing. And it could happen tomorrow. But I'll still be here, and I'll still be praying for you, and I'll still be loving each and every one of you, and hoping if you're not ready to reach out to the Most High today, that you'll come back after you've tried everything else. It is the only thing more powerful than evil, my friends. So I wish you all the best. I love you. There's more to come, and I hope you have a very blessed day. We meet on Sundays. Hit the like button. Subscribe if you feel called, but we meet every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific. We meet every single Sunday for live discussions, and it's something you can't miss. This community will wrap their arms around you, and I promise they'll support you. They have all been through this. If I haven't heard of it, they have, and they will wrap their arms around you. And so please have a very blessed week. Know that you're in my prayers and that I love you very much.